All right, welcome back after a nice summer break. Here we are, another episode of the AI series with Nick and myself. Nick, how have you been?
I've been good. Summer's been nice. We've been enjoying it well here in Europe, which is good. Nice weather, heat waves every once in a while, but we're handling it.
Well, you can tell that you're still American because you're probably one of the few people in the whole European country that has air conditioning. So it's
Yeah,
very obvious you stick out.
yeah, exactly. Stick out like a sore thumb over here. It's true.
Yes,
Everyone
but
else
I'm
is like
sure.
air conditioning. No, we
Yeah,
just close the blinds and we live in darkness. It's like, okay, why? Yeah, anyway.
it's okay. You're everybody's best friend right now.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. JP, how have you been?
It's been good. We've been traveling around Europe, so we took our son over there, had a great time. We had two weddings, got to spend some time with family, um, and luckily escaped right on the edge of starting from the heat wave, so it was perfect timing for us to jump on the plane and go back to air conditioning.
Very good, very good.
So it was a blast, really good time, and then right away back into traveling to full speed. But it's been really good, so I can't complain.
Nice. Well, good.
But
Shall we get into the AI world?
let's do it because, as we know, our people over there, Sam and Dario and Elon, are not sitting still. They don't have a summer break. They're actually, they keep cranking. They keep cranking and getting a little summer drama over here, a little telenovela happening over the last couple of months. So let's dive into it.
Yeah, very true. So, a few things that have happened. One thing that's happened since we last spoke, some IPO filings
Mm,
that have happened. We had OpenAI June 8th, Anthropic June 5th, and then Google, who wants to raise $80 billion in fundraising with selling more shares and expanding their all of this. These are big steps. They need more money. They
yeah.
are uh, they are burning it and not making a profit and need more money to to sustain themselves. And that's what we're seeing here. So these are filings. They're not public yet, but that's going to be the next few steps. We'll see. We'll learn more soon.
Yeah, we'll see. I think they were kind of aiming to beat each other in terms of like getting to the market first, because obviously each of them will eat up quite a bit of capital in the market. So I think whoever is first here might have a first mover advantage. Um, I think what's actually very interesting to see, because obviously the S1 filings are public, so you can kind of like look through them. I thought a couple of fun facts to see in terms of like Anthropic, maker of Claude versus like OpenAI. Um, the explosive run rate or growth that like Anthropic just had is just like crazy. Like they went up from like 10 to 14 to 47 billion dollars, which is just like insane within like a couple of quarters basically. And apparently they're close to being profitable. So I don't know how much I can read into that. I think there's like some debates around that, but apparently they're almost profitable, which would be kind of insane and kind of interesting, given the fact that OpenAI is having some massive losses on their balance sheet. Um, and so again, would kind of like, have the narrative of like, hey, business to business, the coding side really has like so much more upside versus maybe the consumer market that OpenAI has. Um, but yeah, interesting to see. Again, you can only read so much from the S1 filings. There's only like so much public, but interesting to see that. Obviously, interesting to see that Anthropic, who I don't know if you agree with that, but they were kind of like dead in the water maybe a year and a half ago when they split up. Everybody's like, yeah, like yeah, OpenAI will take the reins and like it's done. And then now all of a sudden, like their growth is faster than OpenAI's, and they actually overtook them in terms of revenue, which is kind of interesting and kind of again shows the shift why OpenAI is moving heavily into codecs, heavily into B2B. Just much more money right now in the B2B space than there is in the end consumer space, which I think no, but maybe Anthropic saw it coming and that's why they kind of jumped into it. But again, maybe also just got lucky. But yeah, I think they've seen a lot of upside there. At the same time, business is pulling a little bit back in terms of like the spending now and kind of like hold on, like let's not do all the token maxing here. Like let's actually be smart about like how we use these tokens instead of like just blasting through these budgets. But anything that you've seen in the filings or in the recent like discussions around like revenue and losses and just kind of like financial performance?
Yeah. I think what's also interesting is there are hints. I mean, yes, OpenAI is definitely moving to B2B. They would say that they saw that and that they wanted to expand in that direction as well. I've heard that. I heard them say that in many ways. I think one interesting aspect that's coming up is and rumors and various podcasts and various people are talking about this is a move towards other value in the AI chain that OpenAI and Anthropic can go for. That looks like Claude Code, that looks like Codex, of course, but also sort of like a an ecosystem of app building or agent building and all of these other aspects that they're thinking that's where the real value is going to be, rather than this, this dinky little chat that you can chat with and just get a response from. That's actually more and more looking like that's sort of like a side hustle or a side project compared to the direction that they're going in. um, that's the aspiration and the hope. But what we see, I think, what we also see on that aspect is a lot of CEOs, a lot of people are like, yeah, this is gonna make a big change where, we can like get rid of certain departments and we can do different things. But then if you actually work in it day to day, sure, there are a lot of things that it can do. But it still takes a lot of work to set up these
Yes.
agents and to set them up correctly. So it's like there is a disconnect still of where we're going to be, the aspiration of where we're going, where we want to be, and the value that that creates, and the the busy work and like the time and effort that it takes to set things up to make it work really well. You're also building often like pretty custom scenarios that, yeah, some of it's copy paste but not really everything. So
Yeah.
you're just, yeah, that's what I'm seeing at least. How are you feeling about that? You seen
A
that
hundred
too?
percent, 100%. I think, I said this before, but it's more middle to middle than it's end to end. So you have still a human in the loop that has to kind of come up with the concept and also verify the work, right? So that's kind of like the end piece of it. In the middle, like doing the actual work, like go write the email, go send the email, like all that stuff basically can be automated. But like you still need somebody actually understanding the process, drafting the process, QAing the process, making sure it actually stays quality wise the same. So we're still not there. Like just hand it off and then we're done. Like we're not there. We're actually, I think, very far away still from there. Um, but I do think what we're getting is like we're getting to, and we'll get to this in a second. Is like the model capabilities are getting like kind of nuts now. They're kind of getting to a
Hmm.
point now where like, oh, maybe we should look into this a little bit more. Um,
Hmm.
Cybersecurity, those types of things are definitely becoming a topic. But in terms of like day-to-day operations, yes, there's still a lot you have to like connect, and then tools change all the time. And then also what I've been seeing a lot is a lot of acquisitions. A lot of these AI startups are being acquired left and right by bigger companies to basically assume and get that AI talent, get the workflows, get to know what they know. Um, and so I don't know what's still going to be out there in a year from now. Like there's so many AI startups, and there was like a similar trend around like mobile apps in the App Store. Like the number of apps are kind of skyrocketing, and then the number of downloads or like the number of ratings is kind of like down falling, or like not falling, but it's like kind of flattened. So you can see that everybody can build an app, but not everybody can build a product that actually is somebody wants to use, right? And so that's kind of like where the differentiation comes in. Um, and yeah, we've seen it, but we've seen the same thing. Like it's middle to middle. It's like it's great once you know what you're doing, but um, you still have to set it up. You still have to connect all the dots. You still have to make sure like you prompt it and you connect it and you have an agent and all that kind of stuff basically. And it's not that easy. Like if you've ever set up a Hermes or OpenClaw agent, like these things just don't work out of the box. They require days and weeks of setup to even like provide some value. And even then you have to keep maintaining it. So I think there's a ton of value there, and so we'll keep exploring. I think again, early stages, early innings. Like this is like
Hmm.
day one of the internet basically still. Like we're very early on here. So it's just super interesting to see.
And with that, you're seeing a lot of, I think, gobbling up of a lot of different companies. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, I'm sure, with SpaceX, but also you see a lot of people, a lot of talent moving around. Karpathy, one of the big ones in AI, has announced that he's joining Anthropic, and then also. Various others from Google are also leaving to go to Anthropic and other places, and so it's a talent acquisition game as well as a sort of company buyout as well. A lot of
Yes,
things are happening.
100%. It stays interesting. I mean, lots of happening in the politics as well. Lots of happening in like how things
Hmm.
are being communicated. Just but to kind of close up here, I think that what's interesting is the fact that both IPO filings were pushed back into next year now already. So
Mm.
they wanted to go public as soon as possible. Now they're like, hold on, like maybe telling everybody that we're taking all of your jobs is not the best narrative to run the public company and get like sentiment in the market. But like again, what is crazy is that AI is more unpopular. It's like less popular than the Iran war in the US, which is crazy to think about. Like it's already so low, and then the AI is even below that because of like the communication has just been so bad. Whatever is being communicated is just kind of like we're taking the jobs away, we're doing all this stuff. Every company that's doing layoffs is blaming it on AI, which I think is absolute BS. I don't think it has anything to do. I don't think it has anything to do with AI because AI is not taking any jobs right now. It's actually producing more jobs. Like what I'm seeing is like we're getting more productive, so we want to do more stuff, so we need more people to do this stuff, basically. Um, and again, it's just there's a massive like image problem, and now they're rolling back. They're like positioning of like, oh yeah, no, not yet. Like it's going to take time, blah blah blah. But I think they realize that sentiment in the market has matters a lot when you're a public company, and so they're kind of rolling back on some of the public comments that they have made previously, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. Are you hearing that sentiment in the US a good amount? Because I think here, Europe is always a little behind, and I think there's still definitely interest in AI, especially with the projects that I'm working with the companies and the partners that we're working with. Um, I don't feel that backlash as much, to be honest, here in Europe. Are you hearing that also from
I'm
people?
actually hearing, yeah, I think I'm like hearing different things. I hear like around like autonomous driving, I get like a lot of pushback around like, oh, I would
Mm.
never do this, and then like different friends groups are like, oh, I would never do it. Other friend groups are like, oh, I love it. And so it's very interesting. It's very like depending on where in what area you live, it's like very much like the opposite. If you hang out with San Francisco, like these guys are like all about Wamos, right? But if you go somewhere else, they're like, not really. I don't want it, and so it is quite interesting. I think I'm and even like on companies I've worked with, um, some of them are like, I don't want to give all my data to Anthropic, and I don't want to run all my emails through them. I don't want to give them all the stuff, right? And I think it really depends on what you're building. Like if you're SpaceX, if you're like Boeing and all these like large enterprises, and you have value to defend, I get that. If you're a sub, I don't know, probably every small business is probably like really like do you really build something like very uniquely different and complex that could not be replicated potentially? Is it just like a human, the human that like that's running the business and the operations that's really the difference here? So I think sometimes people are oversensitive now, but they just heard the narrative now that like they're stealing the data and like oh now there's Claude Finance and then there's OpenAI Finance. They're taking away all these consumer apps, and I'm like, but do they though? Like they have all these things and they have like Claude legal and OpenAI legal, but the startup called Harvey is still like humming and making a ton of money because turns out delivering a product that works well with a good UI UX is actually much harder than just like building something and just like being out there. Like it has to be usable. And so I don't know. I think it's remains interesting, but I think if I would be an enterprise, especially if I have a lot of trade secrets and like just have a lot of history. or like biotech, where there's like a lot of like exploration happening, I don't know. I think I would be on the same page. But again, there's different options to do this. There's open source models. You can host this yourself. Um, so I think what I've seen actually even more is like a push for AI, implementing it, it not working, it all of a sudden costs go up. And they're like, but what am I really getting in return? And then there's a little bit of pushback and a little bit of hesitation of like, do we really need this? And
Hmm.
so that's
Hmm.
definitely what I've been seeing. But yeah, it's quite interesting. I think it's definitely depends on like which circle you go into, and you get very different opinions around like the sentiment of AI.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, if we look at stocks as well, and if we look at the AI industry in general, only recently, I mean, we've since the last time we chatted, uh, also because of Google needing to raise so much more money and everything, there's definitely been a dip on that side in terms of the hyperscalers that are public, and then in terms of the suppliers, let's say the data centers, the companies that help make data centers more efficient and everything else, they've also seen a hit recently, and
Yeah.
semiconductor buildup, all of that they've seen a hit because there's the market is wondering and questioning, is the value really there, and is this already a bit of a overhype, and are we do we need a bit of a correction? So you're seeing that. We'll see. We have quarterly earnings coming out in the next few weeks. So we'll see sort of what that looks like overall in AI. But yeah, interesting times because of that.
I have a hot take here. I think if
Oh,
I think if those companies semiconductors are dipping, you should buy because what I can tell you is there is 100% of shortage
yeah.
in the market. There's not enough compute, and this is just like I don't know what it is, political blah blah, but like I can tell you everybody's looking for electrons and everybody's looking for data centers. Like come on, like there's so much demand. Like we would be flying if we would have like all these models like work 10 times faster or just like make them make them cheaper. Like that's really what we want, but we can only do that if we have more compute. And I mean, look at Samsung. I mean, I think their revenue exploded so much that they're going to make more profits this year than in the entire history of the company combined. That is
Hmm.
Samsung, a massive company. And because of the chips and because of the what the parts that they're saying that this year they're going to make more profits than the entire history of the company combined. It's
Yeah,
insane. And
that's
you're going to see
crazy.
prices going up, right? I think inflation is actually a real thing because laptops are getting more expensive. Apple just raised their prices $300 to $400 per laptop. Um, so memory is going up, right? SanDisk is like exploding basically. So everybody needs memory right now. So I think what I'm bullish on is actually chip companies that are going to be more efficient and actually like optimize towards this like new stack of inference. So that will be interesting. But again, I think if there is a dip in semiconductors, go ahead and buy it. I think these companies are a long way from not be needing, and I think they're still undervalued. Nvidia, same story. Like these guys are like selling like they're selling everything out that they can, and their stock is still not behaving like they're the most valuable company. And I'm like, I don't know. They have the full stack. They also have a very good open source model that they could sell tomorrow. And yeah, it remains very interesting. I don't know. Um,
Disclaimer, everyone that's listening, this is not financial advice.
yes.
This is not JP does not work for in the bank world or anything like that, and has also not done that HR mitigating risk training. So do not listen. Do not consider this HR or any sort of financial advice.
Yes, do not come after me. You just heard this from somebody who is absolutely not educated. But
Yeah,
in case you do want to listen, like yeah, don't invest. No, I'm just
yeah.
kidding.
He's got he's got points.
Yeah,
He's got
yeah.
points to say. Hot takes.
Hot
Yeah,
takes.
no, that's fair. I think, yeah, it's an interesting time. It really, really is in terms of, is this a bubble? Is this not? Where is the bubble? Where is it not? How long is it going to be? Uh, is there underlying value? This is something that we've never seen before. This is technology that we've never seen before. Focusing on knowledge rather than making a process better. Like these are huge. There are a lot of differences to this scenario than before. And so, how much of that do we throw out? How much of that do we use? to better forecast. There's a lot
Yeah.
of questions there.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I think you're going to see a lot of different. I think people are going to get smarter on like what models they use for what use case. Because like
Hmm.
today, everybody throws everything at the most expensive model, and then they realize, why am I solving a 1+1 problem with like an Opus model? Like I can just use like a 10 times cheaper model that's like 10 times dumber, for example, right? But it's still smart enough to do basic things. And so I think what we're going to see is the token efficiency is going to go up, and there's going to be people and companies are going to implement like a router type concept where it'll know what type of complexity the query has, and then route it to a model accordingly. And then that will probably hurt an Anthropic and an OpenAI, because there's obviously open source. There's ways to make things cheaper. But yeah, as you said, it's going to remain interesting. Um, and there's lots of drama right now around these two companies anyway, because they love the drama. Maybe a good segue into what's going on with those two companies and the new models that have made quite a lot of noise in the market. Our Mythos model that we talked about, that is going to be the cyber weapon of whatever, um, actually was released to customers under the name Fable. Whoever knows who comes up with these names, we hopefully stop with these names at one point, because nobody even understands it anymore. But basically, Anthropic launched a new model called Fable 5. It's basically Mythos with guardrails, so it's a nerfed version of Mythos. Then what happened is, because they announced that it's going to be the cyber weapon, and then at the same time, AWS president or CEO Jesse, what's his name? Jesse mentioned, hey, our team realized that we can take off the guardrails, we can jailbreak it, and it's now full on Mythos. And Dario was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't believe you. And they're like, no, I think it's pretty true. And turns out that it was true, and that they didn't want to react to it. And I think because of that, they get an export restriction from the U.S. government. And that was quite the upwhirl here of like, oh my God, is the government going to get involved now in every single model release? Um, and at the same time, a couple weeks later, OpenAI is announcing their model called 5.6. They have like three different names: Luna, Soul, and I think something else, like different complexities and different model sizes, basically. And that was upheld as well, but they didn't get an export restriction. I think they're actually releasing it tomorrow. So on July 9th, we're taping on July 8th. Um, and Fable was released as well. It's out in the market again. The export restrictions were lifted, but obviously lots of drama of like, what does this mean? Like, what does it mean for open source? What does it mean for Anthropic? What happened here? What was kind of like I'm actually very curious, Nick. Like, how did all that stuff go down in the European side? Like, on your end, like, how was that demonstrated? Because that's going to be very interesting.
Oh, it went down. This We heard about Fable, obviously, and then saw that it was taken down, um, and that nobody in Europe and nobody had access. That was for us, for me in an AI company. That was weird. That was a big step and sort of a scare of, okay, this the government is stepping into areas of areas that they think are, of course, in terms of security and safety, really important. But that also limits us as an AI company from the best, supposedly the best models and the best out there. And will that also limit the work that we can do and the what we can provide in services? And so that was super scary for a little bit.
Yeah,
We It wasn't, luckily it didn't all last that long, and there was still what we've also noticed, I think, is sure, these updates are obviously, and these new models are better in various ways. They aren't they don't make a difference yet for us in our projects and everything. We try to work as model agnostic as possible, because otherwise you're also very stuck in their pricing for their APIs, and you try to be as agile as possible and make it work for different models, but it's still scary when something like that happens.
100%. Was there any concerns that the US might cut off model access in general? And it's like all of a sudden it's like, yeah, no, sorry, we deem it as like too dangerous, so Europe was cut off, you can't use these models anymore.
Yeah, there were definitely thoughts and fears of, is this just the beginning? Is this going to be are there going to be other models that Europe just won't get? Is this going to be a negotiation tactic of Trump for trade wars or in other sort of scenarios? These all were thoughts that were coming up where it became overnight, it became a much bigger risk than we had anticipated or thought about.
Yeah.
And I would think and I would hope that Europe as a whole, as well as various countries in Europe, are seeing how dependent we would be on these large companies and seeing ways to at least try to add value in the AI industry and create their own little niche of some sort to be able to diversify this risk and get rid of at least as much of that risk as possible.
Yeah. I think it's a huge red flag. I hope that they can clean it up very soon. I think it's even a risk for like US companies, because of like, oh, what if you're not deemed to be like in this top 5% of companies, right? Because they did do like an initial rollout to like 50 trusted companies. Um,
Hmm.
I believe, and like I think I've listened to a bunch of like podcasts and like read a bunch of articles, and I kind of agree with like some of the consent around like this is not going to be the standard. I think this was a very unique circumstance of like, hey, you're telling us it's a cyber weapon. You then release it to a certain number of companies that we trusted. We then find out that you released it to 20 entities that you didn't inform us about, including apparently a telecommunication company in South Korea that apparently has ties to Chinese government and was using the model to distill it and extract it and make their models better. Apparently, just putting it out there. So I think that kind of came down the road, and like the fact that AWS called out that their biggest partner, by the way, called out that they can take off the jailbreak, and then the fact that nobody reacted to it and didn't take him seriously. I think all of that in combination was like, okay, hold on, we can't trust you. And I think that's a huge problem. And they had that problem before. It's a total image problem. And it's the same problem why it's so unpopular, I think, in the US population is because these guys are horrible at PR. They're horrible at presenting, and they think they know everything, and nobody else knows anything basically. And I think it's a big problem. And actually, somebody else stepped in now to take over the conversations here in the U.S. actually in negotiating with the government. And Dario's kind of taken out, so they actually put somebody else in place to have these conversations, and it's been going, I think, much better now. But it is quite interesting because you can go down this like rabbit hole and tinfoil hat logic of like, hey, what do they think of themselves and who they are in this world, right? And if they're releasing these manifestos and these blog articles, and it kind of gets a little scary of like they think they know everything and nobody else knows nothing, and so maybe we should make all the rules and then nobody else should be involved in this, and we're kind of like the all in kind of like deciding factor here, and that gets very scary, right? Because obviously we don't want that. Again, having said that, I think it's a hiccup. I hope that we all learn from it on all sides, because the worst case scenario here is exactly what you said actually for the US companies is that everybody diversifies. And one more worst case is that everybody outside of the US is adopting Chinese hardware and Chinese software, which would be the biggest blowback overall. Like that would just be catastrophic. But I think that's the fear here, because like if you have no alternative, like where do you go, right? So you just go to the other partner and get that. So yeah, I really hope that they can figure that out and do some good PR here to make this better.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I do think that even with as you were saying, blog posts from people from these hyperscalers or even from people in the industry, I think there's a lot out there of fear, of course, and of losing jobs, but also of security risks and everything. I think that it is really important that we keep on getting those blog posts and that we get that information because that helps hopefully helps society see that there does need to be certain regulation and a certain setup for this in this AI world in a way that hopefully doesn't hinder innovation. Of course, that's a very fine line, and that's very difficult to do, and that's also hard to do when you're in such an arms race against with China and others. But there are steps forward. Dario had mentioned, and this is my next point that I wanted to chat about. Dario had come out with a blog post about we're sort of we're too late. We're too late with just having regulation that sort of monitors these hyperscalers. We need regulation that not only monitors but also sets certain restrictions and at least has sort of audits and other sort of steps, not just the monitoring and auditing, but also really independent uh, organizations that are tracking and understanding the risk of let's say suicide or the risk of various other aspects of these of LLMs and everything else in AI. And Illinois recently just has passed an Artificial Intelligence Safety Measures Act, where this is sort of a state that's taking steps forward. One being that they're mandating strict safety protocols. They also want independent third-party audits that investigate these larger companies, and that there's also incident reporting for the large developers of advanced AI systems. And so this is if there are incidents of security risk, but also psychological or mental or anything else that also impacts many people, these are areas that need to be shared with society or need to be shared out. This is interesting because we also didn't want Trump didn't want states to have certain rules and regulations, and so that there's pressure here now too coming from one state to doing this and trying to rally other states to join in this as well so that they have more power in numbers. So yeah, that's also at play, and that's coming at a head in many ways.
Yeah, it's I think it's actually the wrong way to approach this because I think it just slows down innovation and opens up doors for others because what they don't understand is that there is open source and that means anybody can have an AI and you
Hmm.
can't control that. Like there's rules and regulations around like hey, harmless and all that stuff. Like we already have laws that go against that you can't go after, whatever against kids for example like there is a bunch of like civil laws that already exist that just apply to the same thing but the AI is already out there. You can't put it back in the box. And so like if the model is out there, like you're not gonna it's there. You can't regulate it. It doesn't go away. It's open source. It lives on the internet. Um, and so I think what's actually much more important is, and we do a terrible job at this, is probably like know your customer. And so enforce that like if you sign up with Anthropic, OpenAI, these types of companies, that you need to drive a license. You need to get verified basically. Like the same way if you want to buy Advil coat and signs at the pharmacy, you have to have an ID. The same way if you want to buy like fertilizer, you need an ID. It's totally fine to do that because you can build fertilizer bombs. Why don't we just enforce that same thing at these companies where you just have to like know your customer? And then all this stuff will go away because like all the harmfulness will go away. And for all the other stuff, there's civil law. And we can't have like all these state regulations because, in my opinion at least, because then it's become how is a company going to navigate 50 different state regulations with AI? It's impossible. Um, and then they're just gonna go for something that can't be regulated, which is open source. And then you just host on your own computer, and like, how do you regulate that? It's impossible to regulate, right? And so I think it's just like so different, and we should apply hopefully common sense here and civil law to some of these use cases, because what does it mean to be harmful? Like, it's just like so hard, right? There's like civil law because you can't murder. Yes, okay, yes, but like we already defined that. So I don't know how an AI would be different with that, basically, but
Yeah.
anyway, it's just new.
No,
It's
I
it's gonna
think
be
you're
it's gonna be crazy.
I think the KYC, the know your customer is a very important aspect in here. I think you're very right with that. I think even in in the near future, where already even where people are spinning up agents, and in the future, if these agents can buy things, sell things, are considered persons in many way, can open bank accounts, there needs to be an accountability. There needs to be a connection to a certain person or somebody. Otherwise, this can go off the handle really, really quickly. So that I completely agree with you with on that aspect. In terms of harmfulness, I do think that these are conversations that we need to be having
Yes.
and discussing, because I do think that with social media that has been sort of a frog in boiling water that slowly builds, and this is, you know, this is the scenario that many people use to discuss this, where the harmfulness of that it was not really discussed enough until later. I would love for us to at least have those conversations earlier, and to be able to start trying to define these things, even though we have no, even though it's very new and we don't know what that looks like. But you're right. Again, it's a very fine line of you do not want to hinder this innovation, especially with the arms race and everything else, and still look out for the greater good. It's a tough needle to thread in many ways.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think that like we're too late on social media and like knowing the ramifications of it because it was so new. I just hope we don't do the opposite now. We're just like being overcautious and just like regulating everything from the beginning. So like it bites us in the ass as well. So, but I think 100% you're right. Um,
Yeah.
I will just circle back because
Yeah.
I was
Cool.
looking this up while we were chatting. Sorry. Job growth and AI narrative. I think this is like so
Yeah.
important. Um,
Yeah.
I'm gonna show my screen. This is a recent study by Ramp. Ramp basically powers and has like payroll, HR software, so they have access to a ton of capital. Basically, they see all transactions. Um, and so what they saw is like companies. So like the dark line here is like the people, the companies that have high AI intensity, and then the dotted line is kind of like low AI intensity, right? So like they make it based on like how much you spend on AI, basically, because they can see that through RAM cards. They have like financial data, et cetera, et cetera. And so what's interesting is like the companies that have adopted AI heavily grew their headcount exponentially more than companies that have a low AI intensity, which again goes with the fact of like if I'm more productive, I can do more things, I can make more money, so I need more people. Versus like AI is taking away all the jobs. It's actually the opposite here. You can see that like the more I adopt AI, the more headcount is growing in these companies basically. And we don't tell this story often enough, but I am just trying to do this myself as well. Of like we just have to look at the data, and the data does not support an AI job loss.
No, no, completely agree there. I do think there is a bit of a nuance in the sense of potential entry level roles where there is a reduction there. If anything, it is a more of a shift to a lot of other sort of more management experience roles. Where there is a lot of value still to be gained, and a lot of headcount that still needs to be grown. And as we said earlier, it still takes a lot of work to build these agents. It's not like you
Yeah.
can just like set it and forget it and have it running. We're not there yet. This is still very, very early days. And we that idea is not true in with many companies, And it's just like uh, there will be shifts in the roles. There will be changes there, and so if you are in a certain role where that AI can take that over, then it's going to be very important to learn other skills, to use AI, and to actually find where your skills can fit in the roles of the company. But so that will continue to evolve, and it'll be important to do that.
100%. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a non-starter. If you don't know AI, you probably don't get a job.
Yeah,
That's probably like the real outcome here.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
we can talk more. I would love. We have so much on the agenda. I don't think we can cover
Yes.
everything today. But
I don't know.
talk
I don't think we will.
talking about IPOs. Talking about IPOs. SpaceX went live, went
Yeah, your
public.
boy.
Huge, huge success. I'm very bullish on the SpaceX stock personally. Again, no financial advice here. I think this is the next. This is the next Apple. This is the next Microsoft in a different era. I think if you look back at Apple stock 20 years ago, I think you're gonna look back in SpaceX 20 years from now. Um, Personal opinion. But why this is interesting on the AI factor is they made a deal with Cursor right before the IPO. They want to change their IPO, so they had interesting contract, and turns out they bought Cursor, the development company, the third biggest ecosystem for developers, literally the week after they went public. Um, and they're now using their Colossus data center, they're using their Grok model, and they're using all of the Cursor data that they have, and they're now building their own models, which is going to compete with the OpenAI and the Anthropic models, especially on the coding side, especially where all the money is being made right now. They built their agent harness called Grok Build CLI, which is probably the most important fact. In order for these models to work, you need to have a good agent harness. Built that thing in typical Elon style within 2 weeks. They released an update multiple times a day to make it better. And today or tomorrow, we should see our first new model version that's coming out with post-training data from Cursor into Grok. I am very bullish. Apparently, it's going to be faster, cheaper, and equivalently good as Opus. I am very excited to see it, and they're also working obviously on a brand new model where they included in the pre-training data. Having said all of that, I think that if you'd have told anybody that XAI, now SpaceXAI, would have been in the market to compete with OpenAI and Anthropic in the coding space 2 years ago, again, everybody would have called you crazy. Here we are, very strategically smart investment in my mind, and I'm very bullish on this one, being a developer myself. Excited to see what comes out of it. And yeah, this should be a fun one and just something to keep an eye on.
This guy knows what he's doing. I mean, he's able to create incredible valuations for huge companies, and bring in some ingredients and pull in some things here and there, and create immediate, pretty quick value that rivals the large hyperscalers that have been working on this for a long time. His move also with data and data centers was like super perfect timing. Was Yeah, and so it's that with Cursor and SpaceX in the future. He is yeah, I think in many ways I would have to say he kind of deserves the amount of money he's asking for in terms of salary and payment.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, and I think it'll just continue. That the time frame for him, he does a really good job at removing constraints, and he does a really good job at the short term time frame. How do we produce and provide results pretty quickly in various ways? And then he's also looking at the longer term, and just slowly but surely bringing that together. So that's
Yes.
yeah, it's cool. It's cool to watch.
In the meantime, fun to. I think I'll be called out in the May episode, but like he obviously rents out compute right now to Anthropic for roughly 1.25 billion with a B per month, not year, per month, and also made a deal with Google, another $920 million per month. So he's making $2.1 billion a month right now just by renting out his compute. And by the way, he's like, oh, by the way, this is a month-to-month contract. If I need my compute back, you have to go. This is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just crazy to see how ahead he is and how much he saw the compute need, and so it's just kind of wild. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's really, really cool. All right. I think that's it for our general updates and industry news. JP, you wanted to share a little bit, a quick demo, actually.
yeah, we can do this. I was gonna say we can skip this because I think your two topics are interesting, but let's do it more
Ah,
quickly.
okay,
Let's
cool.
do. I think I can do it quickly. I think what we've seen is Chrome dominating the market for a very long time. We then saw a bunch of companies move into the browser space. Dia is one of them. There is also Atlas by OpenAI. There is Perplexity Comet. So like all these kind of companies bringing out their own browsers. TBD on what the bet is. I haven't heard much there. Atlas, I feel like, is not being developed anymore because they fully shifted their focus. Um, I actually don't know much about like Perplexity Comet on how much they're investing there anymore. They've actually been really quiet, to be honest. Um,
They have been
and
really quiet. I have not heard much from them at all.
yeah, which probably means they're getting acquired soon, but who knows? Just
Yeah.
putting out some feelers here. Um,
No
but
financial advice.
there is a new company betting all in on browsers, which is called Aside. And Aside is basically a full agent browser that lets you run um, different models within right in your browser that has browser use built in. So they're thinking that the browser is basically where you live, where you can communicate, where you have all your passwords stored, so you can just like tell it to get like your pay stubs, and it knows your Rippling login, so it can log into Rippling. It has communication built in and docs and spreadsheets. So instead of like relying on having like a single model, this browser is completely built differently and is from an agent first perspective. Again, they're saying that like their type of like agent that navigates the web is like much better. And actually, they also built a password manager into it that now works with AI, so you don't have to integrate with other password managers. Um, so again, I think this is really interesting because obviously the biggest problem is when you tell AIs to do stuff, you have to always authenticate against that. If you're in a browser, you have all the authentication. Like you stay logged into Instagram, you stay logged into Gmail, you stay logged into WhatsApp, and all that stuff. So it can just go ahead and do this. Um, I thought this was very interesting. Personally, again, I think it's really hard to switch browsers. Um, but if they can really nail the browsing agent experience, because I don't know if you've used the Claude extension, for example, on Chrome, it is really slow. It really does take quite a bit of
Mhm.
time. And so if they can nail that, it'd be very interesting to see. Again, I've been very bullish in the beginning on browsers, a lot less bullish these days. I think that we're going more towards like a non-UI actually, where you just tell it to do something and you authenticate in the beginning and it's going to get done. I could be wrong here, but I thought this was interesting that they came out like this late in the game, maybe late in the game, but like that somebody's putting a big bet on browsers and actually was able to raise money in YC to basically accomplish this goal. Again, we'll see where it goes, but I thought this was like an interesting, cool new product that is going in a direction because I think all these companies kind of like stopped developing their AI browsers a little bit and kind of like put the pause on that one.
Yeah, they really did. And we've chatted about this before. The browser is currently the way you connect to the internet. It's
Yeah.
the way that you access this information and access also how to buy tickets for shows, flights, everything else, and so much of it's connected there. And so it's an interesting play. We'll see if it's good enough. And if the AI hype that people in the US aren't feeling anymore as much, if they're interested in actually making that change still.
Yes.
We'll see. I did, as you were chatting, did just look up Perplexity, and Business Insider just came out with an article yesterday saying that they are quietly building an AI coding tool similar to Cursor and Claude Code. So
Always
again,
going down the
more
same path of
competition.
revenue.
Yeah, yeah, they really are. They're like, hey, it seems to be working there. Let's see if there's enough, if there's more market share in that space. But yeah, that seems to be where they're going. Who knows?
Interesting. I mean, look,
Yeah.
I think where they can be really successful is if they do this routing very good. But I think Cursor already has it, Devon already has it, so like I don't know if there's space for a third player in this market right now. I think they're struggling, and I think that they're having a hard time really positioning themselves in the market. But who knows? You never can underestimate entrepreneurs and what they come up with. It's all about like the end product and how well the product works at the end of the day. So maybe they can just deliver a much better working product. So we'll see. I'm not counting anybody out yet.
No, I mean, I hear that they are also continually trying to raise more money. I think that becomes harder and harder for a Perplexity when they're not, doing the same sort of things as everyone else. And so, if they aren't building one of these coding tools, then I'm sure investors or potential investors are like, why not?
Yeah,
So I think it's yeah, for Perplexity, I think it's a difficult time. Not gonna lie. I think a lot of sleepless nights there.
yeah. Gotta follow the money,
Yeah.
and the money isn't coding right now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah. So that's that. One thing that I did want to discuss a little bit is this generative engine optimization. So we all know about SEO, search engine optimization. That was something that was big and was sort of created by Google, a company that organized the world's information on the web. And that led to SEO, a whole industry to be the top on the search results and to be as high as possible. And then, of course, ads came up, and that was also really helpful. But in this new world, what does SEO look like? What could it be? And there are a lot of people trying to find that because there's a pot of gold under that. They just don't know how to access that. And it's harder in this scenario because if you think about it, all the data, all the information that you're typing in an LLM, that's OpenAI's data. That's Anthropic's data, and that is not open. That's not a search that you can actually just search and look at. But I did a little bit of research to see what was out there, and there were a few interesting things that caught my eye. One was this company, super small, I'm sure, agentdiscoverability.com, where they're hoping and they're trying to create a whole dashboard of being able to track your app or your Claude connector. So when you are searching for things in Claude or OpenAI or other areas, and you say, "Hey, I want to book a flight to Greece," then you will see various options pop up, and you want to be one of those three options if you're Booking.com. And so this company and others are trying to figure out ways to collect that data and see how often you would pop up. And so the way that they're doing this is that they will actually create agents that will ask Claude on a certain number of times the same question to see if your connector then comes up and then we'll track how many times that has happened, let's say. And so then you get a sort of percentage of this new sort of SEO that they're sharing and trying to test out to see if that gives you substantial data that you would pay for, and then also see how you can make changes to that. If you are a startup and you're listening to this, there are a few things that you can think about. There are ways to sort of get your outside branding and marketing set up in the best way possible. And a few ways would be first off, really to optimize for every surface. So, obviously, still traditional search is still there, but try it in AI chatbots. Try asking for your whatever industry you're in, and see what pops up, and see if you can tweak what's on your page and what you're sharing, to not only be at the top of the search results, but also to try to show up in AI chatbots. And that means you can also create connectors and apps in Claude. Those are open, also in OpenAI. And there are ways to try to be upfront and in front of people right now for free, to be able to show up for essentially sort of ads in AI. And then also, there are a few other questions of like really focusing on sort of where are your leads? Where do they normally come from? Is it foot traffic, digital products? Is it a B2B sort of scenario? And really thinking if your clients, and maybe even asking your clients and future clients, are they searching for this stuff in AI, or is this still a search, just like a Google search? A lot of that can depend. If your clients are younger, they could be using AI much more. So all of these things are important things to look at. And then also, if you are seeing fluctuations in your Google Search Console data for your startup, for your business, then that's a telltale sign to start thinking maybe there's somewhere in this whole generative engine optimization or AI engine optimization that you'll need to look for as well. So, just a few thoughts about that. Do you have anything to add there?
I think that it is very early on and that you should definitely be optimizing for that. Um, I don't know how important it is for the average business outside of like consumer businesses like Expedia and like the big ones basically. Shopify, there's also like the Shopify integration now we can find products, right? So I think if you sell products, makes a ton of sense. I think for service companies, that kind of stuff is like pretty early on still, but might as well be the first
Yeah.
ones. But software companies massively benefit from that. So interestingly, like there is a company called Resend, and they what they do is they send emails for you. So if you want to send emails from your software, you have to integrate with like an email provider, and so they're one of them. They skyrocketed because they optimized their documentations to be agent friendly. And so when somebody asks like, "Hey, I want to have my app to send emails," they would always be the ones pop up first because their entire documentation was written in an LLM friendly way.
Yeah.
And so now you can see that like people are optimizing for that. What's actually interesting is there is a file now called the LLM.txt file that you can add to your website that describes your website in Markdown format to make it easier and like more reader friendly. And there's some settings that will actually encourage like the crawlers to crawl your website. So that is definitely something I would make sure that like your website does not block OpenAI and Claude and all these crawlers basically because there's absolutely zero benefit and there's zero downside. There's zero downside in like blocking these crawlers. So make sure that they can crawl you. Make sure that you do some of these like basic tasks basically. Um, but I think it's going to be a huge market. I just don't know how early on we are and how
I
much
know.
impact you see. But it's definitely I think especially in the end consumer space, if you sell products, I think this is going to be huge. I would be there early on. I would try to be there early in the game and have an edge, and then just test it out and see what the impact is. I think it's just experimentation, basically.
Yeah, and maybe take some time to think about like if there is a way to have a connector in Claude or OpenAI or something that would add value to these end customers. So like, do you have a product that or an app or something that is very good at saving contacts and you know duplicates, or I don't know, certain things that come up with your product that you can offer. If people are searching for that, or if they say like, hey, can you do this for me, like clean up my desktop or whatever, and there's a connector for that, and you you're running that. That could also be a like a one sort of SaaS sort of thing that brings them in to using your product and then potentially sign up on your website. So there are interesting spaces and interesting places that you can look into for this. Yes, very early days. I just thought it was interesting to see where that's how that's developing, and we'll keep you guys updated in the future as that progresses.
100%. I've even seen like buttons now that kind of widgets pop ups like chat with me on ChatGPT and ask questions. So that I
Yeah.
thought that was very interesting, and you can just ask questions about the company. So that's
Mm,
probably a good test as well. Um, but awesome, Nick. Thank you so much. Another
of
amazing
course.
episode.
Yeah.
Post summer break, we're gonna be back monthly now on the regular schedule. And yeah, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you all.
Bye bye.
Bye.